how things have changed. I remember back in the day when I used to just run a CH Eclipse yoke and CH pedals, but now we've got a whole array of really high quality flight sim hardware. Enter the new Moza Rudder pedals. And in today's video, I'm going to give you all the information that you need to know, a flight test using the Bigscreen Beyond version 2E, that's the eye tracking version, in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So what are these pedals all about? Especially as, unfortunately, they're not force feedback. But does that really matter? Well, there is a number of things that really make these, quite honestly, the smoothest rudder pedals I've ever used. So let's just start from the beginning and I'll show you some of the unboxing. As always with Moza, the build quality is absolutely top notch. It's spectacular. They really are beautifully made. The entire body of these pedals, including the linkage system, is constructed from a very high grade metal. For example, the pedals themselves, listen to this. I can imagine these are going to last you absolutely years. The installation is pretty easy, although I must admit, for someone like me, it did take me a while, especially to install the damper, which I'm going to talk about as well. You can also have these heel rests attached. I know they're not very realistic, but they make it very, very comfortable. So for me personally, I like them attached because that way my whole foot just rests on them without slipping off. However, it must be said, for realistic GA operations, it's best to have them angled completely sort of upright with your heel on the floor and the ball of your foot on the pedal moving them. And that way you won't inadvertently hit the toe brakes, which is how you do it in real life. Now, unpopular opinion here, but I actually prefer them tilted back a little bit with that heel rest because they just feel really comfortable. But I like how you've got a range of adjustability. You can adjust the pedals up and down. You can also adjust the throw of the actual pedals with two screws at the back of the pedals, which is really, really nice. The springs are also easy to take off, very nicely designed. And overall, I have to say, these are the smoothest rudder pedals I've ever used. That includes those of force feedback as well, because I have tried a number of different pedals. They are incredibly smooth to use. So a massive plus there. However, it's not all perfect. I do personally feel that the rudder pedals are a bit too wide compared to more traditional pedals, especially those you find in a GA aircraft. They are very wide indeed, but I must admit they're very striking to look at. Also because they're so heavy, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing because they don't move on your carpet, and that's also due to the immense build quality. I'm not sure I'm going to put these on my motion rig because they are just far too heavy, so I'll have to use them for my static rig instead. Now let's talk about the damper. This is really important. There's a lot to talk about here, and that's from my real world experience as well. So first of all, what is a damper? Well, essentially, it allows you to fine-tune the resistance to match different aircraft types. For example, helicopters or flying a heavy airliner, a fighter jet, you get the idea. But to be fair, the pedals feel so good anyway, I was a little bit skeptical on whether this is really needed because bear in mind, this is an accessory. I think it costs £65 extra on top of the rudder pedals. So why would you need one? Well, let's just talk about the difference between a spring and the damper. Springs control how hard the pedals push backwards to the center, whether the damper controls how quickly those pedals move back and forth, making you feel that you're pushing against control linkages and pulleys, for example. This is really crucial depending on the style and type of aircraft you're flying and whether that's important to you as well in terms of if you're an enthusiast or a casual flyer. Think of it like this. The damper simulates the hydraulic pressure or resistance and, in my opinion, provides a far more realistic feel based upon my limited real-world experience, because I'm not a real pilot, folks. This is just from my experience flying aircraft both in the real world with my pilot friend sat next to me and also experiencing lots of different types of rudder pedals as well, even the real top-end 2-3000 force feedback style pedals. But there's something else as well, folks, that I need to explain. It removes the snap back. you feel from cheaper alternatives. In real life, pedals do not return to the center. And looking at some reviews out there, some people have said this is a negative, but actually this is more realistic to aircraft in the real world. Another great example of this is if you're coming into land, or perhaps you're taking off and your pedals feel really twitchy and oversensitive. Yes, you can dial some of that out with curves and settings. This is where the damper comes really into its own due to the small corrections that feel a lot smoother, and you're actually less likely to overcorrect. This is essential for heli flies in my opinion. And I would recommend for heli flies, while I'm on the subject, is to take the springs out completely and just use the damper. It feels fantastic. So with that in mind, because it's quite complicated really, I think for most of you out there, probably the damper is not really worth it unless you are someone like me who wants the ultimate realism and the best feel that you can get. Then it is worth it for you. But that's enough technical information and talking about the specifications and everything else. Let's go for a flight test in the A2A Comanche, because in my opinion that's one of the best aircraft out there with superb rudder authority, with things like adverse yaw. The flight model is good enough to be able to showcase a proper spin and a forward slip, those kind of things. So here we're just testing the ground physics, another really top-notch feature of the A2A Comanche. And here's one thing that I wish the pedals had. Perhaps a bit more tension on the toe brakes. I feel a little bit too easy to push in and out. Just a little gripe, but I guess with all the flexibility of these rudder pedals, it would have been nice to have a bit more resistance on that toe brake axis. Anyway, as you can see here, as we're taking off, we've got plenty of P factor with this very powerful Comanche, and having to put a bit of right rudder in there, as you can see, feeling very precise. I must say, those Hall effect sensors doing their job very well. We're in the Bigscreen Beyond version 2, as I say, with eye tracking. That's something I can't wait to talk about a lot more in a separate video. And you can see there I'm actually using some different modifications to the Bigscreen Beyond as well, which has made it insanely comfortable. But for today's video, we're going to focus on the rudder pedals, and we're going to do a series of tests. This first one, just checking out the adverse yaw, seeing how the aircraft feels. And of course these aren't force feedback, but they do feel incredibly smooth. And as I say, once again, I think for most of you out there, maybe buy them first without the damper, see how you feel, and you could always get that at a later date. So, right, first thing we're going to do is the good old steep turn. I'm finding this very easy to make sure that everything is coordinated. I'm using, by the way, the Moza AB9 in this case, not the Moza yoke. That's because it's getting ready to be put on a new motion rig, which I can't show you right now. But as you can see here, I'm obviously looking at the instruments a lot more than I would in real life. I'd be looking out of the cockpit, very important in real life. You get a good feel, but these rudder pedals mean I can get a perfectly coordinated steep turn without any issues at all. Very, very nice. And I must say the visuals in the Bigscreen Beyond 2E look really, really good as well. This is plenty sharp enough, folks, it really is. So now we're going to do a spin test. Check this out. I think this is a testament also to the A2A Comanche, how smoothly and fluid it spins. And a boot full of left rudder, and we've already recovered. Very nice. By the way, if you're wondering what these pedals are in the background, you can just see a grey shape there. They are my CH pedals. I've used them now for 20 years. That's how long they've lasted. I wonder if these Moza pedals will last that long. They certainly feel like they would, but maybe in 20 years time I'll give you an update on the reliability. We'll see. So the last test I'm going to show in this video today is a forward slip, and what I'm going to do is apply left aileron and right rudder. This makes me very difficult to fly, and the wind is hitting those surfaces at very disruptive angles, making me slow down whilst I'm doing a steep descent. Again, this is a testament to the A2A Comanche, and in terms of the rudder pedals, they absolutely feel superb, really smooth, and even with a lot of force on this particular setting I've got, they're staying put on my carpet. Keep in mind though that the dampener, you can see there's a metal rod that pushes out. Just be careful that doesn't hit your wall. So let's see how we get on with this landing. Very aggressive forward slip here. And as you can see, I'm using the pedals my way. That is not very realistic in this case. I've got them set so my feet are completely sort of relaxed on the pedal with the heel rest as well at the bottom. It's funny, isn't it? You know, I do prefer a very realistic feel, but I want to feel comfortable as well in my sim rig. So this is why these pedals are very customizable to you depending on how you want to fly and how you want them set up. I really like that from Moza. They've thought this through. So it's time to conclude what I think about these Moza pedals. I think overall they are absolutely fantastic. The build quality is sensational. I love how smooth they are. They're actually the smoothest rudder pedals I've ever tried. I think the only things I don't like is perhaps they're quite wide compared to normal GA pedals anyway. Also, I think the toe brake could do with a bit more resistance, but I'm being really picky here, folks, such as ironically the build quality is so good that they're too heavy for a motion rig. But overall, this is a fantastic pair of rudder pedals. And by the way, before I forget, Moza did send me these, but my opinions are always my own, of course. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. Please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care, and bye for now.